All right. Once again, here we are.
Once again, we are back. It is October 20th, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 627.
Session 627.
Yeah, we were joking before the cast, and as much as it is for you, it is definitely the same for us, but we said this is a therapy session 627 because as much as you guys probably think this is just for you, it's just as much for us. And that's how we started it, and that's how it'll always be. It's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and that your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We'll also do a lot of race recaps and race previews, but for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as athletes and coaches, but also as human beings on this planet, trying to find our way. We also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I both work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner-level triathletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint, all the way up through elite-level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between and from all over. We'll use the feedback loop we have with them via Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Great community, outstanding resource, and it really is a lot of awesome people in there willing to lend a hand, answer some of your questions, your burning questions or burning desires for many of you, and help you avoid some of the pitfalls and or shorten the time span between obstacles that you have in what can be a very, very daunting, overwhelming, and confusing sport. And we'll go in there like we will today and do a little Q&A session where we kind of take the pulse of the community, let you guys drive the topic, and go through as many questions as we can. We did part 1 on Tuesday, and we'll finish it up today. But outside of that, we don't do sponsors. We definitely don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and maybe we should treat this like a therapy session. Like when you're done with your answer, I'll say, tell me why you feel like that.
It's right. Always with another question, right? Yeah. It's never about, it's rule 101. Never answer the question. Always follow up a question with a question.
We should have the group do that too. They could ask the questions that are therapeutic in nature, and we'll ask each other. That could be a podcast.
Yeah, that could be. Now, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me what you really mean. Tell me, that was like one of the biggest rules. That's like a big rule in sales too. If you're like halfway decent in sales, is to ask, you have to ask a minimum of 3 questions. That's it. Minimum of 3 questions. Because usually you can get all you need out of people in 3 questions. Because most people like to talk about themselves. So once you get them rolling, then they just kind of keep rolling. They kind of dish it out, and they give you all they need. So yeah, that's our therapy session. Sometimes it's your therapy session. We'll go into some therapeutic things, it looks like, in our questions for a Facebook group. Before we launch into that, we'll remind everybody that November 1st, we're launching our race-specific training plans. Instead of listening to me kind of go through all the details of that, you can visit the front page of our website, c26triathlon.com. It'll give you all the info on just the training plan. And then we also have Wisconsin 70.3 and Ironman Wisconsin camp going live November 1st. That's already live for our own athletes, but that'll be available. The date for that is August 3rd through the 6th. And then we also are offering a training plan plus camp package. So really just an all-inclusive deal for those of you looking for it. And the only thing I will say about the training plan perks, we're offering for specific races like Texas, Chattanooga, Wisconsin from the Ironman distance, and then 70.3 Chattanooga, Des Moines, Wisconsin. But what we are going to do is if you go on the Ironman website and you scroll through, I think I used Muncie as an example earlier today, when it's got swim, lake, reservoir, bike, flat, run, rolling. That's kind of how we'll label the plans as well. So if you're looking to, apply it to a different race we don't have listed, you'll know what to match it with. And if you have questions about which race to match it with that's not listed, and if it'll be useful for it, you can email summer at c26operations@gmail.com. But the biggest thing that the race plans will offer is it really just not just a great plan that's proven over the period of time the athletes we work with and the kind of C26 philosophy that you hear on the podcast, but it's a great teaching and learning opportunity. I love to teach. I love to go through things, and the Zoom calls would be, you're looking at, 6 hours of education going through that and going through things. So whether you want to be a coach in the future or want to continue to coach yourself better, could be a great learning experience for you. And again, you can find more information on that on the website, c26triathlon.com.
Yeah. I like how you said all inclusive. That reminded me of the resort world and maybe even run camp.
That's right.
Got run
Sandals
camp coming
resorts.
up.
Yeah, I wonder how those are doing now.
What is?
Like the all-inclusive resorts, like Sandals all-inclusive resort. You pay like $1,200 and you get like 6 days at the beach. All you can drink, house liquor and all you can eat food, and people just kind of go and sit for like 5 days and drink and eat as much as possible in like small.
Yeah, I know.
That's right.
I guess that's the way to go. But if you go to to Haiti or something, or they have these like places, and that's where I can just picture people just sitting around like at the pool bar going, I'll take one of those fancy whatever those are. And they take like one sip and go, nah, this ain't it. Just give me something else.
Exactly. It's an outstanding sales model, because what happens is two things. One, you taste the house drink and you're like, is there any liquor in here? Mm-hmm. And to you, it's free, but it's not. It's all blended in, and it's a lure. And then what you do is you're like, you know what? Give me an extra shot of tequila. And that extra shot of tequila is like $7, right? It's like in you and I did I think we talked about this on the podcast once about or maybe it was off air, but we talked about old Silverados off Murfreesboro Road in Nashville. Oh, yeah. And they had the brilliant sales model of free beer until like 10 o'clock, mm-hmm. which beer is so cheap it's not even funny. But what you do is you get everybody boozed up till from like 6 to 10, and what do? Spend recklessly on liquor and shots and all kinds, because the beer's free. Let me buy 6 rounds of Jaeger shots, my friend. $45 later, and they make it all back. So it really is a brilliant sales model. That's not our sales model, but it is all inclusive. Yeah. There won't be any Silverados line dancing. There will definitely not be any Jaeger shots, but it will be a lot of fun. So hop in there, check it out. And again, if you have more questions, go to the website and check that out, or additional questions that you think the website doesn't answer, email summer at c26operations@gmail.com.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds good. Yeah. We got some good questions, I guess.
We do. Yeah. We had a lot of questions pop in, and to be honest, like I threw these in there about an hour before the podcast, and people, those of you that are really present, right, and don't get on social media a lot, you don't see it. Good to you guys. But there's a lot of, what'd you say?
I said good for you guys.
Yeah, for the Corey Coggins of the universe that, you can get on Facebook and you always see them online with a little green dot, but they never comment. And you're like, I know what you're doing. I see you. First question comes from Tom. For those of us with minimal access to open water swim opportunities, and the ones we do have are in small glass smooth lakes, what can we do to better prepare for possibly less than ideal ocean swim conditions at Ironman Florida? This is a great question. I think we touched on it a little bit with one of the questions we had on Tuesday. Everyone likes to focus on, and listen, we've got maybe 6 How to Not Suck at Swimming podcasts that really kind of dive into detail the differences in training, pool swimming versus open water swimming. But the thing is you can do that in the pool. You don't necessarily have to do that in the open water. Mm-hmm. It's an access thing, right? But it's also a strength thing. It's also a stroke thing. One of the biggest reasons I'm anti total immersion is that it's pretty much for shit when you get to open water, because you're slow and smooth and calm and you're moving backwards. And you're very gentle with the water. Open water swimming, you have to be powerful. You have to use your stroke up top. You have to be, a lot of times it's not longer, slower strokes, but longer and stronger strokes. But listen, generally speaking, with everything in life, if you want to be better at something, in certain conditions, you need to get better at it overall, period. And so I would say the first thing you do is just become a better, stronger swimmer. And if you're a better, stronger swimmer, And that goes, totally outside of just, courses like that you might look at like, a Florida that's open water ocean, or, an Ironman Wisconsin that's, lake that can't be choppy. Every race in the water has the opportunity to be difficult. Like even going back to like Chattanooga 70.3, when it was, it was like 200 meters of it were upstream and the rest was downstream. We'd get like a little bit of current and everyone shits their pants. Like, we better rearrange the whole race and add 0.4 miles to it, because these triathletes can't swim 200 meters upstream. Like, so every race you encounter can have tough. I mean, look at the Ironman Waco swim. Is this from this last weekend? It was so long and it seemed so hard for people. So even if it's a downstream swim, a protected lake, quote unquote, like Ohio back when we used to do it, that was a slow swim. Memphis 70.3 is one that comes to mind. That's a slower type swim. The faster, you might not be as fast as in a regular, protected glass lake, but it's all relative, right? You might lose 5 minutes because that's a question I had with athletes that did Memphis. I was like, hey, listen, just so you know, when you get out of the water, if your swim time is 3 to 4 minutes slower than, a usual race like an Augusta or something like that, like it's not you, it's the course. It's just slow, just like Ohio used to be. But back not in Sandusky now, but back when it was in Delaware, slow swim. Muncie used to be, before I think they changed it, it's slow swim. Like there are just swims that are slower than others for a variety of reasons. But there's a difference in 3 or 4 minutes slower because the course, and 10 to 15 minutes slower because the course and conditions. And that's just something you have to prepare for. So it means more swimming. It means stronger swimming. And it means putting yourself in difficult situations. You and I have discussed this a ton, over the course of the years, the first, summer you and I worked together, you never did probably ever the distance of the Ironman swim. But when we went to open water, you worked your ass off. You didn't go around, and noodle around with your buddies and tread water and swim 50 strokes and tread water and, swim 50 strokes and tread water again and do all this and this and this. You worked your ass off and you put yourself in situations where being uncomfortable was no longer uncomfortable. It was just an annoyance, or it was just expected, or it was something you had seen before, so you got over it. And so that's the biggest thing. Swim hard, swim often, work your upper body, become a better overall swimmer. And then when you get to open water, swim hard, right? And if you get tired, tread water, or put yourself in situations or with a group, or, at a location where you can, do beach starts and get hypoxic really, 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 really quick. And then don't give up, work on, and you can do it in the pool too. Like we do sets where you might do like a 400 to 600, intervals, but the first 300 is all out. And then the last 300 is like settle in. And it's a great fitness boost, but it's also really great for practicing like that jump start adrenaline rush you get when you swim, and then easing back into things and collecting yourself and still being able to swim steady and not panic. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that, even without honestly having access to open water.
I love what you said, because I think everybody has this impression that, we're going to say, yeah, just go find the lane right next to the water aerobics workout and get some waves going in the pool and practice swimming like that. But what you said was like, you just got to be stronger, and it's almost like sighting too. Everybody's I'm just a terrible sighter. I'm a terrible sighter. Well, if you can get your your stroke balance and you're swimming stronger and just naturally swim straighter, you don't have to be, like when I started, it's a perfect example of what you said back in the day. We used to just swim crazy and we'd always be making contact out at the lake, and it was just kind of how we did it. But I was still a crappy swimmer, and I'm still kind of a crappy swimmer, but I've worked hard in a lot of ways to get stronger and just be more comfortable, because when I went to Wisconsin this year, and as you said, Lake Monona can be a little bit dicey, and there's times I've swam up there when it's just eating my lunch with the swells and everything like that. And I think if you go to an ocean swim where there's massive swells and everything like that, that's a whole different I mean, that's just a tough one, but to me that's probably really about being strong, but also mental and just being able to relax in that situation. And that's what I took this year into Wisconsin. I did work a lot harder. I swam a lot longer. I used paddles a lot. I got really strong in the pool. And when I got into Lake Monona, and it wasn't that bad this year, but there was still, some swelling, and, it was open water, definitely more than a Chat River or something like that for the most part. But I just, I think I mentioned it after, it was my best swim probably ever for Ironman, as far as how I felt and went about it. And I just swam through, I was like a barge. I wasn't trying to be smarter than the waves. And that's what I used to do a lot of times. It was like really try to, time it out and and then I'd miss, how you miss with your whole stroke misses and hits air and stuff like that. I was just kind of trying to stay in the water and be one with the water instead of trying to get fancy and everything. And I just kind of relaxed a lot more. And I think what you were saying there, that to me, that's what that's all about, is just swimming more, getting stronger, and just being able to relax when you're swimming through, water that's a little rougher than you're used to, but don't let it get in your head. The other thing I did, and I can't remember if I ever mentioned this, but it's a silly little thing, but I usually wear earplugs because I have problems with my ear getting weird with water in it. So I usually put earplugs in, but for some reason, I never used to pull my cap over my ears.
Mm.
And
you never used to do that?
I did it, and then I stopped doing it for some reason. I can't remember why. But this year I did
all the way over your ears. You just let your ears totally hang out,
it would just pull down like a beanie or something.
You see with athletes that don't have their cap over their ears, it makes their ears stick out to the side.
Yeah, I kind of would just wear it like a beanie on top of my head or whatever, which was silly. But I pulled it over my ears this time for some reason that morning, and I think it helped because when waves would splash, I didn't hear it as much, and it was a lot calmer in my brain or something like that. And I don't know. I felt like that had some impact. So I think most people pull it over the ears, so I could just be,
yeah, I mean, you should 100% pull it over your ears. Yeah, every time.
I don't know why I did that.
But here's the
flying
thing.
Free and loose like a surfer.
Yeah, that's right. But you said something that stuck out to me, and this is kind of what we're alluding to, is that you had maybe your best swim ever because you arguably also had your best swim prep ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, it's a 1-to-1.
Certainly distance.
Right? And that's the huge thing with athletes in swim is if you want to get better at swimming and be able to conquer, because listen, the biggest thing is confidence. If you've got confidence to swim fast, then you're going to be less fearful of the conditions because you have the fitness to overcome the conditions, and the conditions to you won't feel like the same conditions to others. A man or woman doing a 120 who's confident in the water and chop and in waves, they're just going to keep swimming. They're not going to be unsettled as much as the swimmer maybe that's doing 210s, right? Because you're going to feel it a lot more. One, there's going to be the water significantly longer, but you're not as strong and you're not as fast. So you're going to feel it more. That's how it is. And so again, it's not some special open water experience that you can go, and if it is, we would do it. But it just takes hard work, and hard work, brings confidence. So just get more confident. Next question, Jeremy Chapman seems to come up frequently enough on here. Tapering back into working out, coming off an illness. Listen, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think for the majority of people, you should I always say wait 24 to 40, even if you're feeling like a little bit off, take 24 to 48 hours and assess, and you and I both discussed this, if I'm feeling slightly off, I kind of like to know if I'm off, and I go out for a 20 to 30 minute run and I check my heart rate. If my heart rate is 10 to 15 beats higher than normal, I know something's going on. But what I also do is I add in a few pickups. Again, this isn't science. I have no research to be able to back this up, but I have individual experiences every single time that back this up. I'll add in a few pickups to raise my heart rate just a little bit up, and if there's something in there, hopefully it fights it off. But most people look at there's an obsession now with checking your HRV and telling you if you're sick or if you're overtrained or if you train hard today. I've been measuring it for 8 months, and I can say there's been two or three times where I legit feel like it has picked up the fact that I'm getting sick or about to be sick, because it's pretty much been in line with the times that I've just kind of felt off. But what I have done is to make sure each day that I've actually gone out and done something, not intervals, right? But I've done like a super easy 20 to 30 minute jog. I think the other thing is that, once you feel like you can do aerobic work, don't delay. Do aerobic work. It's not going to be enough stress on your body to hurt yourself. Again, going back to looking at HRV and tracking, things like your resting heart rate, and your recovery, red, yellow, and green. When I had this discussion with the group I'm in, it's like, when I see, I think I mentioned this on a couple of podcasts ago, like when I see red recovery or high heart rate or a bad HRV, I don't think I'm getting sick all the time. It always coincides with me not training. And I've had that basically since Wisconsin, like the last week or two. And then guess what? This week, I've trained every single day, and I've had my best HRV in the past month. Is it because I did less work and let my body recover? No, it's because I treated my body right and did more aerobic work. Mm-hmm. Always, and again, to simplify it, we have a rule. If it's from the chin up, keep going as prescribed. If it's in the chin down, like it's in your chest, like you're coughing up stuff, it's viral, take things easy. And then I think the very few guests we did, this is way back in like the first maybe 200 we did with Starkey. And he said, if he feels something coming on, he immediately takes 48 hours off, which is pretty much my rule. If you're feeling really, really down, 48 hours off, sleep as much as you can and rest. But again, you might not have that luxury, right? You might not be able to take days off work. You might have kids to be responsible for. You still have stuff to do. So sleeping 11-hour days, to get better ASAP isn't necessarily, a thing you can do. But, in my opinion, is a lot of times people will, once they feel kind of back, they will not come back officially and train until they think they can do intensity. And I think that's a mistake. Get back and start doing aerobic work, easy stuff. It'll continue to help things out. It'll continue to help you get better. And it is proven, is, scientific based. There's plenty of papers that say, exercising boosts your immune system. That's a fact. So again, remember, like the less you're training, the more suppressed your immune system is. But then on the other end of the spectrum, high lengthened intensity can suppress it a little bit, but you want to have a little bit here and a little bit there. But, for most people, get just like the injury thing I did on Tuesday. It's like, once you're injured, you shouldn't stay injured. You should start to get better. Same with being sick. Once you're sick, you should be on the road back. You shouldn't be staying sick. And a lot of times that comes down to individual choices.
Yeah. I guess I would have a lot to say about this. I think it kind of depends. I mean, I like the differentiator between the head and the chest. And a lot of times for me, I feel like sickness can be purging, like or feeling sick, I guess, from what you've put in your body or how much rest you've been getting or like how you've been grinding it and stuff like that. And so you got to pay attention to that. And like for me, like I just do stuff, man. Like I'll sometimes just eat garlic cloves or stuff like that, because I'm trying to get it out, right? And I was listening to somebody the other night, I forgot who it was, a podcast. And
you're being proactive.
Yeah,
right?
So it's like
you're not sitting on your ass eating chips and salsa for 4 days.
No, and obviously depending on what it is, and just getting a lot of fluids, because regardless, when you get sick, your body's trying to get whatever it is out, and that could be 8 nights of beers or pizzas or whatever. I mean, like, sometimes you feel sick after that stuff. So it's obviously, diagnosing that is a whole different story. But like for me, I think about it with apple cider vinegar and just try to move stuff out. And but also I was listening to this guy who was talking about saunas, right? Like you're talking about aerobic work, and this just clicked for me. I was just thinking about it. I don't know if this is like, always with me, it tends to be bro science, but a sauna will raise your heart rate a little bit without a lot of activity, So I just think of that in terms of like, okay, if I'm trying to get something out of my system, and like you're saying, the light aerobic work, just to kind of get the blood moving and get things happening in there, and then coming out of a sauna, and then I just taking a little cold shower, which constricts the blood vessels a little more, and it just kind of helps you pump things out. So I do stuff like that too, or it doesn't have to be actual running or swimming or something. It can be, doing some yoga or just doing some just kind of flexibility stuff or, dynamic movements or whatever like that. Easy stuff that just keeps things going, because I think there's a difference between sleeping off, you know, a virus or something like that versus, you know, kind of getting rid of crap you've been putting in your body for the last 3 days or something like that, or a bad stint with some things. So I like it.
You and I, neither one of us are doctors. Neither one of us are scientists, but we can tell you this, and this is from experience for both of us. You know, looking back over the last 3 years, how many days have you and I missed of work for being sick? 0.
Well, I think there's got to be something to say for that, man.
Well, I mean, it's not because we're geniuses and we're healthier than the rest of, you know, the society, but if you look at just kind of, you know, doing things that take care of your body, I'm not saying other people don't, but you know, a lot of people get sick a whole lot, and then they do less and less and less, and a lot of it comes down to, what do you put in your body? How much are you sleeping, right? How much intensity are you doing? You know, again, you know, because you talk about the sauna thing, and while there's not, you know, it's like, hey, go to the sauna and cure your illnesses, but there is, you know, there is research about raising your core temp, you know, and how it can fight off, you know, infection, or identify it and then prevent things. And I am a believer in that, just from a one-to-one, you know, experience, and that's me. Of doing it. And, you know, again, I would go back and, you know, limit stress. And that's one of the biggest things people, you know, should do more of. And I think one of the reasons people are getting sicker and sicker is people are working 80 hours a week. They're not sleeping enough. They're eating like shit, and they're consuming stress. Social media, news, work, doing things they hate, being around people they don't like, drinking too much, eating like crap. And you wonder why you're getting sick. Like, to me, those are just like the basics, you know, and do the opposite, right? And not get sick. And the thing is like, you can get sick, and then you can rebound very quickly, you know? And so, you know, again, we don't have the magic potion, but, you know, the common denominator with things, and you want to talk about a lot of this off air, is, you know, limit your stress, sleep as much as you can, eat pretty well, you know, and then if you feel like you're not getting well, at least try to get better immediately, and do things like, you know, your thing was, you know, to, you know, take in, you know, garlic cloves or whatever, you know, mine's always do like a certain workout and pound some, you know, juice, or just be a little more mindful about hydrating and stuff. So again, like, coming back from, just be mindful, sleep as much, and then limit stress. I really think stress is, it'll be a chronic illness in like the next 10 years, like high levels of stress, because I think that is a huge thing that causes so many problems with people. So yeah, I mean, if you're coming back, again, be smart, be aerobic, but get back into it, you know. And I also think that working out raises your mood. And I think that's a good thing.
You said it, dude, that 5 years from now, the stress thing, and you said consuming stress. So you said we've done 627 podcasts in the last 6 years and haven't missed a week. I mean, there's got to be, you know, so it's not like I don't get sick, but a lot of times, like you're saying, I just try to be proactive about it and handle it. And I also, like, mentally, sometimes I just don't let myself believe it, you know? And I know this sounds like woo-woo stuff or whatever, but I can tell, like, some mornings I wake up and I feel like ass. And I can kind of track it back. A lot of times, you know, I try not to go like on social media, like on Twitter. Sometimes I'll go on there and read a bunch of shit, and I'm putting like crap and like thoughts in my brain for an hour, you know, or whatever. And I can just tell that, you know, when you're that's what I mean by purging. Sometimes I think we have to purge that mental ingestion that we've done, you know, whatever we've consumed over in the last few days. Like, that's what I mean, like, by spending so much time on social media and things like that. I think it just sort of, you know, and last night I was kind of thinking about that again. I'm like, you know, I got to go back to my boy with Alan Watts. And I kind of listen to him. He's a real spiritual guy, and it has this like calming effect. And it's a different, you know, we have to really start thinking about that, I believe. What we're, you know, reading, what we're listening to, what we're watching. I think that stuff matters. I just really do. I think that gets convoluted with sickness sometimes. I think it's just this stress overload, and we're trying to sort things out in our brain, and it translates into feeling bad, you know? So not that, the original question, I'm sure, like the sickness thing. But I just think, like, I mean, I don't
we only get through like 3 questions at a time.
Yeah. But I just think it's important, like, our body's always trying to tell us stuff. And Emily sent me this thing the other day, or it was called, listen to the whispers. You can tell, like, fatigue is starting to whisper to you, or like something is happening out there. Pay attention before it overtakes your brain, whether it's a sickness or whatever. You can kind of tell, like, I woke up this morning, it's like, oh, that sort of reminds me of like how I start to feel sick. Well, right then is when you address it, like you're saying, pound the juice or water or garlic or whatever you get into and start beating it. Don't let it just overrun you. And I think easy exercising is a good way to kind of do that. Walking, whatever.
You got to fight back. Next question. When you feel like you're running better than ever, how do you approach the marathon off the bike with the confidence you think you should have, but not being too aggressive? I know steady is the game, but what is the best indicator that you can look for within the run portion to manage that pace? I'll say this again. I've said it a million times. Going off pace off the bike in a marathon is you're heading for a mistake. And the thing about fitness and confidence is that if you're going by effort off the bike, then your effort this year might be a 5 and it might yield 8:10s, when last year it was a 5 and it yielded 9:30s. Right. So pace is irrelevant. It's still about effort. And I think that's just a huge thing. And again, if you're going to give yourself a pace, you give yourself, a threshold to like a super slow pace. Like if you want to run 8:30s, that's your goal. That's what you think training has shown you. You've done a bunch of, 17, 18, maybe, 2 hour, 220-minute runs. You've been doing 17 and a half, 18 miles on tired legs, right? And you're doing low 8s. So you think 8:30 is maybe reasonable for Ironman pace, then your first 3 miles, you don't let yourself go under 9. And you give yourself a buffer. If you're afraid you're going to go out too fast, if you're afraid confidence is going to crush you, in terms of going out way too fast and running 7:30s, then you give yourself, a buffer, run. I remember, and I think this was like on the maybe first 20 podcasts we did, you talked about Will Emery, who was the age group overall winner, and a friend of ours way back in the day when he lived in Nashville, who won. Yeah. He was like top 10, even with pros at Ironman Louisville one year. I think he ended up running like a 3:0 something marathon that day in just insane hot conditions, which is like, low 7 pace. His first, 3 or 4 miles were like in the 9s or 10s.
His first 3 miles were 9:30 because they had a lot of splits. I remember looking at it. And then his next 23 miles were 7:30s.
Yeah. To make sure you could start to get yourself cool, but because you don't want to get too hot too quick. And again, that was Louisville back in the day when it was, in August. I know Josh referring to Arizona, but still, it's like, I always say this, it's not about how fast you go, it's how little you slow down. And the 45 seconds or 30 seconds per mile you might quote unquote lose in the first 3 miles, accumulating to a whole minute and a half, is it? If you're going to gain speed and be able to run the whole thing strong versus going out at 8-minute miles, and those 8-minute miles for the first, half marathon, and then the last half, you're going down to 9:15, 9.5-minute miles, you're losing 10 minutes, so it's like, give me a minute and a half buffer off the front or lose 10 minutes in the back. It's your choice. So really it comes down to confidence and just super smart pacing, the 3 and 4. The first 3 and 4 miles. And again, when I say pacing, I don't mean pace off your watch. I mean effort. We always say, start off, because again, it's not about negative splitting. It's about, if you look at the best open marathons, the best ones ever will be like a 3-second negative split. The rest of them are total even splits. Like they might run like a 104 first half, and then the next half is like 104 and change. Like it's that even, because it's not about, it's about who sends it, but also about pacing. And that's how it is for Ironman, the marathon as well, is you want to start off at about a 5 or a 6 max, especially if you're, depending on what kind of runner you are, effort of exertion. And whatever that effort gives you is your pace. So say for the first 10 miles, you run at a 5 or 6 effort, and that gives you a 10-minute mile pace. Well, at mile 10, what's going to happen is because of fatigue just from the running and also from the day, in order to keep that 10-minute pace, you're going to have to bump it up to like a 7 or an 8 effort-wise. You're not trying to drop pace. You're trying to maintain pace. And so you can hold that to like, miles 16 to 18. Well, then you might have to bump it to, a 7 to 9, or an 8 to 9. And if you can get to mile 20 and you haven't gone to like, this is my 10 of 10 effort, like, oh, you got the 10K left, then at that point, if you've run 20, you better not be walking the last 10K because you've made it that far. You might as well finish it off. So it's about evenly pacing it. So again, starting off a little bit slower than if that's what you're scared about, then start off a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm. When I think about the Ironman marathon versus like a 70.3 half, it's interesting because there's this concept of banking time, that we've talked about many times. And I think we're all kind of can fall prey to that. And in a half, it's like you can kind of get away with it a little bit, but in a full, it's just like dangerous because it's so much further that, you know what I'm talking about when I say this? It's like I've done many, even half marathons or, we get sort of used to running 10Ks and half marathons and stuff like that. And we know we went out like everybody, not everybody, most people, I went out too hard. I went out too fast. You're just jacked up about the race. You go out, everybody's flying. You're in the wrong corral, whatever it is. And then you kind of hold on, and then it makes sense in a way to run, your first couple miles at ridiculously fast. And then you kind of can sort of pull it together, but you just can't do that in a full Ironman, at least in my experience. You can't go out, 2 minutes faster than you plan to average or even a minute faster sometimes and just turn it around. I think it's all about, honestly, it's like you really need to psychologically get yourself in a place it's a long day. It's a long marathon. So kind of just like almost treat those first few miles as a legit warm up and do it in a way that's just like, all right, now I'm ready to actually start running at mile 3 or 4. But it's very hard psychologically to do that, and especially off the bike. So you got to just, with your legs ready to rock off that bike, even though, depending on how it feels. But a lot of times you can feel good after, running a half mile. Like, damn, I feel pretty good right now. And I've always said a lot of people really feel good through mile 7 or 8 of the marathon. And it's like that, then you're just like, yeah, I got it. And then mile 9 hits and you're just like, forget it. So you got to be just super careful.
And smart and patient. All the exciting things you want to hear about on a Triathlon Related podcast.
Smart and patient.
Iram, I believe is how you pronounce the name. How to train off season to overcome fear of open water swim. I believe we covered that. Derek Hill, where to start as a beginner so that you train up to and have the ability to do longer distance like 70.3 without biting off more than you can chew. Excellent question. And really, like, there are a couple of comments on this thread that, hopefully we can get to today, but about, talk about, stuff for beginners and stuff for intermediates and, people who are on the range of like 6-minute miles to 15-minute miles or whatever it is. But the fact is that the training principles and progressions are very much the same. Mm-hmm. You've just done it for you had the exact conversation with an athlete earlier who's having an unreal season so far and running and riding and swimming better than ever. And they're like, yeah, I love how things are working out this year. And I said, things are working out this year in large part because of what you did last year. We have this obsession with the year, right? That it's in a vacuum and that once we hit December 31st, we start a clean slate and everything is over with. Just like athletes who, don't do shit for 4 months and then do like a 6-week build where they finally start working out again before their leap race and they get the race. Like, I've been training really good. I just can't imagine why I didn't race. You're like, hello, look at the stuff. Don't look at what you did. Look at what you didn't do. Look how much you didn't do. Look how much time you took off. Look how many reds you have. Look how, it's blocks of 3 to 4 months where you didn't do anything. You just got back together with your training and now you're like, oh man, I think I'm there, and one of it's because, you're still fresh from taking 6 months off. But the same thing goes the other way is like, everything connects and it takes years to build this stuff up. Years. So the biggest advice I can give you as a, as a person who's getting into the sport, and you can say beginner, but to be frank with you, 70% of all people you see at a race are beginners. Just beginners, mostly in mindset and in training, because they haven't really figured out what exactly is going to work. Just because you've been in the sport for a long period of time doesn't mean you're not a beginner. And, it's you're still learning. We're all still learning, and even us as coaches, and, everyone's still learning, coming all the time. And so the biggest thing I can tell you is don't take shortcuts and don't get distracted and don't look for hacks. Do your aerobic work, build your base, become the most efficient machine possible. And don't try to just bury yourself, because burying yourself with track workouts and trainer road intervals when you're, 6 months into your training, you just got your tri bike. You know what? I think I need a smart trainer, a trainer road subscription. I'm going to bury him. I'm like, no, like you're going to regress, and you haven't even progressed yet, but you're going to regress, or maybe not regress because you haven't really progressed, but you're going to totally stall improvement. The biggest thing you can do is get as much easy volume as possible. That is where it's not going anywhere. As much as people want to say, oh, it's zone 2 is junk miles. No, it's not. It's the foundation of all of your training, aerobic work. It might not be fun. It might be flashy. And if that's what you want, pick up MMA instead of endurance sports, because that's what you chose. It's like you're getting what you're getting. And so, especially if no matter what you're doing, 13-minute miles, 12, like I've used this before. Like when I first got into the sport forever ago, the first 70.3 I did a 6:13. This is my second year in the sport. This is back when Gulf Coast used to be an independently ran race. And then Gulf Coast, and I don't even know what year. I can't even date it because I'm gonna fail, and it's gonna make me seem even older than I am. But anyway, I did it when I was like 23 or 24. So we're looking, Jesus Christ, we're looking at like 17, 18 years ago. I did a 6:13. And I still remember it like yesterday, because I didn't wear socks, because I read some like Triathlon magazine about saving time on socks, and ended up getting blisters on the back of my feet, and I bled through my Brooks. Anyway, I did that race 6 years in a row, and I went from a 6:13 to a 4:33. I went from being in the bottom 20% to the top 10 overall the last year I did it. It took me 6 years to do that. I didn't stop. I trained a ton. I still did a ton of aerobic work. It just takes time. It takes time. It doesn't require shortcuts. And that's just the brutal, honest part of it. I know it's not an advertisement for the sport, but I can tell you, if you do it the right way, it not only be a great sport for you, but it'll be tremendous for your body if you do it the right way and you don't crush yourself, right? Sports don't burn out people. Training doesn't burn out people. Bad choices within training, within a sport, burn out people. You burn out yourself by how you approach things, right? With your mental and emotional expectations, you burn yourself out. Triathlon doesn't burn people out. Your choices within the sport, just like any other sport, and they use this example, I think maybe a few months ago, talking to an athlete, when I kind of had to say something a little bit, truthful but hard. They said, "Does triathlon do this to everybody?" And I said, let's go back and look at all the last 3 sports you've done. It's like, rally cars and a bunch of that had nothing to do with triathlon. And I was like, and you've gotten burnt out on all of them. So is it the sports or is it you? Because it's you. You take it way too seriously, and then you end up hating it. So it's not the sport, it's you. So have fun, enjoy yourself. And then the biggest thing is dig in your heels for the long haul. Don't just look at this year. Look at how long you can stay within the sport and what you can accomplish in the next 3 to 5, not just what you want to do this year. Because what athletes want to do this year is honestly rarely ever what's best for them. And again, it goes back to like the December 31st expiration date restart. You're like, wait a minute, that shouldn't be what I'm doing. Like, no, it all connects. And so just start connecting things piece by piece. You can work your way down from a 13-minute mile to an 8-minute mile, or even faster. But you got to stick with it, and you got to look at the long term. I've done it. You've done it. Plenty of athletes have done it. Don't get discouraged, and don't jump. Don't cut line. Wait. Wait your turn by doing the work, and you'll be rewarded, fruitfully.
Well, I can be probably the poster child for doing things too quickly, or sometimes almost like what you're just saying. And honestly, I don't want to say it's a regret, but on some levels it is. And we've been kind of on this theme for the last few podcasts, but normally what happens is, I kind of jumped into my first Ironman. I moved into it pretty quickly, worked real hard. I've never been an endurance person and did a lot of work. And I did that race in my first Ironman and honestly hit the wall, and I think a lot of that was just because that you talk about building base and for me, it comes down to this time of year again. It's sort of like I got through from my first race. I got through my second race, all of them. And I'm just like, damn, that sucks. I'm not doing that again. And then I don't do shit for like 3 months afterwards. And then coming into the new year, I'm like, all right, man, let's crank it up again. And even that second one I did, I didn't make a decision until, it was August, Louisville at the time. And I probably decided I was going to race in May or something like that. I didn't really do much of anything up to that point. And I think that's been my curse is that, I can get it done. And I pretty much had the same races over and over and over. But when you get done, like think about what an Ironman can do to you mentally and physically. And when you're done, you're just like, man, I just scaled the wall there. I scaled the mountain. But you don't feel like dealing with it anymore. So you just let it go away, but it's still in there. So to your point, like right now, and think about, I've been doing these for, like 10 years or whatever. And I've never, I've gone through stages of, for example, with swimming. And this is the first time where I really put in the swimming before the race. And I kind of liked the swim because I was in shape for it. And I've kept it going. And now what I've been really finding interesting is that I'll go, and I won't do really super long stuff right now, but I'm working on little things that matter. Every day I go to the pool, I work on something, whether it's, getting a longer reach or just working on my catch or kind of working on flexibility or whatever it may be. I'm actually doing workouts with a purpose right now, and it's interesting. And I think it's all because I got into good enough shape to keep it going. So, and that just feels overwhelming right now because I didn't do that with the bike, and now I feel like I'm behind on the bike and the run. So now it's like, it's a puzzle, man. But you're right. I think it all starts right now. People get done with their race and they're like, I think I'm just going to chill through Christmas and then come back. And I think what I'm saying is baked in there is really a recipe for burnout or like you're saying. I don't think it's doing workouts a lot. I think we should work out every day on some, all the time, but pick the right ones, do the right ones, but just stay around, hang in the ballpark and be in good enough shape to do what you're doing and build slowly because that's what it takes. And normally I just build way too fast.
Two things, and we'll end it on this one and maybe I'll pick and choose if we could stay on topic. But, one, it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to this version of you that's working out in October. Yeah. Since I've known you, this is not what has transpired. This is what's going on now. What I'm hearing from you and the tone in your voice is the exact opposite of what I've heard from Mike Tarrolly. However, I'm a giant fan. Giant fan of it. The second one is you're so right about, of connecting things, right? Because we triathletes especially, we are the kings and queens of prisoners of the moment. We do an Ironman, take 2 weeks off, and you're like, God, I feel like such a lazy, obese piece of crap. Like I probably couldn't even run a 5K.
I know. That's the thing.
You jump straight to that, right? Like they had an athlete that was on the podium in Arizona 70.3 who did full distance Chattanooga 2 weeks before, and then didn't do much in between. Ended up running like the best half marathon she's ever run in a 70.3. And she was like, I really never believed you that, Ironman is a fitness boost, but it is. And I was like, yeah, you did 140.6 miles. You did 13 hours of aerobic work. What do you think it does? You think it just goes in the trash because it's a race? Like, it's insane. The amount of despair athletes get into when they take a month off. You want to know who else does it? Me. Yeah. So I did 70.3. I was going to do a 7.3 Madison, ended up calling the day after the swim for a variety of reasons, but I was getting into pretty good shape. And then the last 3 to 4 weeks. I've ran a little bit here and there, but that's about it. I haven't been in the pool, biked a few times. And then I was looking at my watch. I was like, oh my God, it's only been like a month. You know, and I'm like looking back into like the last few years of my training. I've taken like more than a month. I've taken like 4 to 5. Then I'll do like an 8-week block and trying to get into actual shape, and it doesn't work out very well. And so I didn't come to this kind of conclusion. I hopped on the bike on Tuesday, I think it was, to see how I was feeling in some certain areas. And I did this workout that I just kind of made up in my head as I went. And I get off the bike, and while I totally feel like most of like the medals and that, you know, peak performances that Training Peaks give you are so trivial and really meaningless. But I got off the bike and it popped up and it said 3rd best 10-minute power of the year.
And you started crying. A tear rolled down my eye. I
actually started rejoicing.
Oh, okay. I mean, happy cry.
Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't cry, but I was like, damn. I was like, because I remember looking back at the cycling I was doing leading into this race, and I was getting pretty strong. I was like, man, I've taken a month off, but I'm not. I was in great shape. It's only been a month, so I'm still in good shape. So now if I can just keep building off that good shape, then I can get even better shape. And it's just a funny thing, like of how we, you know, and athletes do the same thing with good workouts. They can have a good workout and it's meaningless. You know, I think there's something with my watch. You know, I think my GPS was off. You know, the treadmill was off. You know, the pool was short. You know, my power meter was off. Like, it wasn't calibrated. You know, like everything is terrible. Like I don't think I was as fast today. And then they can have one workout that's like 5 seconds slower per mile, and they're like, something's up. Hey, I don't know if I were the same route. You know, maybe getting sick. You know, if I'm overtrained, my legs are sore. You know, that's just what's not working. You're like, oh, and then like they just like live on it for like a week, and like, but that's what we do. Like we always look at like the bad things instead of appreciating like the really, really good things that transpire. But it's triathletes are the kings and queens of prisoner of the moment. And that goes with training, and it also goes with like, you know, the newest fad of you know, what's going on in training. Trying to think if there's pick one that we could answer quick. Go ahead.
I just want to say on that, and then also at this time of the year, and this is the trap that I can already feel myself getting into when I said that about, I feel pretty decent about my swim, but my bike, I haven't really ridden since the race. And now I'm like, all right, I got to get that going, you know, but like, I really don't got to get it going. I got to get it going, but I don't need to be like thinking I need to start ripping it right now. You know what I mean? I think that's the temptation. And we talk about train to train, like you need to train in when the year's coming by. But if I can just be in halfway semblance of decent bike shape when the year comes around, that's all I need, you know? And I think again, I always like to talk about as a coach, like one of my goals is always, you know, with most people is to give them a workout today that makes them look forward to working out tomorrow. And it's sort of like, just because we need to keep you know, it's like, we just want to feel good and look, it's that takeaway. It's sort of like, there's one cookie, that's enough for today, but tomorrow you want another one. But if you ate 6 of them today, you know what I mean? It just kind of that, you want to keep that sort of anticipation and excitement going for tomorrow. And I think a lot of times what that means right now is stopping while you're ahead. Just stop while you're ahead. That's enough. You're doing great. Let's go back tomorrow. It's hard, but that's a really good thing to have, right? Whether it's working or anything. If you burn yourself to the ground on one particular day, whether it is at work or working out or doing your hobby, anything, you don't want that to happen. You just need to be able to walk away when you're on top.
Walk away when you're on top. That's what we're going to do today on the podcast. We're going to walk away like we're on top. Even if we aren't, we're going to assume that we are. Finish that one off. We'll maybe get to some of these next week, or at least make it a topic of the cast. We covered a lot of them. Hope that was helpful. And as usual, we love you. We appreciate you guys and everything you do for us and for tuning in and for your feedback. And as always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And all the details we have for our race-specific plans and exciting fun things for 2023. As always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. That sounds good.
Have a good weekend, buddy.
All right, you too. See ya.